Hello and welcome to the big picture. The serious differences between the Aam Aadmi Party government and the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, Najib Jung, escalated further in the last 24 hours. The decision of the LG to appoint a 3-member committee of retired bureaucrats to look into omissions and commissions in the decision-making process in the last 1.5 years of AAP government has added fuel to the fire. This committee, unprecedented in its formation and the task entrusted to it, will also be fixing civil and criminal liability. The committee, which has been entrusted 400 files and more may be given in the coming days, is expected to complete its task in 6 weeks. Meanwhile, the LG has also transferred the Health Secretary and the PWD Secretary appointed by the AAP government. All these decisions of the LG has come after the Delhi High Court last month had held that LG is the administrative head of Delhi. We will discuss today the repercussions of these orders of the LG and whether they are legally tenable and what will be the impact of it on the governance. To discuss this, I have with me Shailaja Chandra, former Chief Secretary, Government of Delhi, PDT Achary, former Secretary General Lok Sabha and a constitutional expert, Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, and Sachidananda Murthy, Resident Editor of The Week magazine. Welcome to all of you. Shailaja, we have discussed this in the past also, but this is a new development which has happened in the last 24 hours, the appointment of a 3-member committee of retired bureaucrats. How do you look at this?
See, there were different ways in which the Lieutenant Governor could have acted. He has acted in his wisdom by putting people of, I would say, unimpeachable integrity, number one. They occupy the highest constitutional positions. Number two. Number three, Mr. Gopalaswamy was the Union Home Secretary, so he would have also looked at the issues from the point of view of what the Constitution, the Act and the rules say. So I would say that he has tried to be cautious that tomorrow it should not be seen, his orders should not be seen in the event of his having to differ with what the AAP government may have done as being partisan or biased in any way, because you cannot really get finer bunch of people to look at all the issues. I would only say that the issues, the fact that he has spoken about civil and criminal liability gives the feeling that perhaps, I don't know, but if 400 files have shown some sort of indication that there is cause for concern on those grounds, then you also need to be clear that this is something which has been tested and scrutinized by people who have a wider knowledge of how these things are to be handled subsequently, if there has been any such transgression. But at the end of it, I would also try say that the situation is such that I would say the AAP government, Mr. Kejriwal, should welcome it, because you can't find a more unbiased group of people. If anything, he has been quoting Mr. Shunglu and praising him for his reports on Sheila Dikshit. So in a way, it is, I would say, poetic justice.
Okay, but Sanjay, well, the legality of it. First of all, this kind of a committee, we have not heard of this kind of a committee in any other state, or even in Delhi for that matter, in the last 20 years that there has been 15 years that governments have been there. The legality of appointing such a committee?
Well, every act is presumed to be legal unless it is struck down by a court as illegal. So I would not like to comment on it right now, but I have a slight difference with Ms. Chandra out here. You may have very fine people on this committee, but ultimately it becomes a question of power. The question of power is, in our constitutional scheme, does a lieutenant governor, even if it is be a lieutenant governor of Delhi, does he really exercise overarching executive functions to such an extent that executive decisions are then again subject to reviews by him or by anyone else whom he appoints? There's an Americanism called Monday morning quarterbacking. That is, after the event, then you keep discussing it. So far, the constitutional structure has only been that if the administrator goes wrong, there are the courts to set him right. It is subject to judicial review. Now, this is another layer which is being put in. They may be very fine gentlemen. They may do it with the highest of motives, but all that is irrelevant if it is illegal. The other part that I would like to emphasize is this, that in one sense you have a High Court judgment for the first time, which has defined. That judgment is subject to appeal, and it is very clear that an appellate court is going to hear it shortly. These actions, to my mind, almost seem to imply that there is an effort to change the status quo before the Supreme Court again looks at it. We have seen these instances in private litigation, in private law, where you win in the High Court before the other party goes to the Supreme Court. You take steps so that you execute the decree and things like that, so that an appellate court doesn't step in. But constitutions are not worked like that. Constitutions ultimately depend on democracy and the expressed will of the people. Here I am afraid that you are actually treading very fragile ground.
Okay. Mr. Achary? Mr. Achary, first about this committee itself, how do you look at this, the constitution of the committee, and you know, what are the legalities involved in this?
Actually, when we look at this committee, you have to look at the background against which this committee has come up.
Sorry to intervene.
Yeah.
Under what rules or regulations or act or constitution does this committee come into the picture?
See, the point is, now the High Court says that the Lieutenant Governor is the
administrative
head and he has all the powers.
Right.
Not the elected government. Even in respect of those matters which have been assigned to the elected government, the Lieutenant Governor has the final say.
Ultimate
the final say. So all decisions of the government on matters which relate to the state government need to be put up to the Lieutenant Governor and his approval taken. That is the thing. Now, he has set up this committee. It appears that the Lieutenant Governor also believes that he can take any decision on any of these matters which come within the purview of the elected government under Article 239 AA. Now, one can argue that certainly the committee that has been set up, it consists of very people of great integrity and all that. Well, they will look into these areas. But one disturbing thing which I see in this is that the Lieutenant Governor has been given all powers and he has become so powerful in Delhi. In fact, when I look at this Article 239 AA and also the NCT Act, it appears that, or perhaps the courts believe, that this constitutional provision and also the NCT Act have been framed to make the Lieutenant Governor the most powerful man on earth.
To empower the Lieutenant Governor.
To empower the Lieutenant Governor is an absurd proposition. Well, after all, this Article 239 AA and the NCT Act have been enacted to provide a democratic setup,
an elected government
to
in Delhi.
An elected government, and in the Constitution, in Article 239, powers have been earmarked, demarcated, responsibilities have been demarcated for the elected government, and also the Lieutenant Governor. Lieutenant Governor has certain areas,
right,
in respect of which he can exercise his discretion, which would mean that so far as the other areas are concerned, certainly the elected government has the final say.
Should have the final say.
Should have the final say. So from that point of view, the High Court judgment,
the High Court judgment anyway.
Error. I mean, I must say that it is an error, and certainly
No, but as far as the High Court judgment is concerned, as Sanjay pointed out, it will be on appeal, and ultimately the Supreme Court will have to decide. But Sachi,
yeah,
Sachi, why is this escalating so much? And one more thing is, it is quite evident that this kind of decisions cannot be taken by the Lieutenant Governor without consulting the center.
Yes, obviously, the Lieutenant Governor has his own grievances against the Chief Minister and the Aam Aadmi Party government. They have treated him quite shabbily. They have been
Personal
confronting
grievances?
him. But then
Personal
also,
grievances.
Huh?
Grievances are personal.
Personal, very personal, because they have been targeting him very personally. They have been calling him names and all that, and he is a sensitive person. But then also there is a larger political connection he has. That is, he may be the most powerful man under the High Court order, but he is subject to the decision of the Prime Minister and Home Minister, who can get rid of him in 1 minute. So he is obviously doing this because, and also the eminent persons who have been appointed. I mean, I am not talking anything about their character and all that, but they had been handpicked for very high positions when the last NDA government was in power. So obviously they are not going to be very, very dispassionate in their decision making. So there is a certain and also, Girish, this is like when the state is under president's rule, there are advisors, all powerful advisors and all that. This is something akin to that. So, and also the Lieutenant Governor can take a decision on each of the thing which comes under his purview and do it, but wholesale referring 400 decisions to this committee, and then talking of civil and criminal liabilities and involvement, that means the whole bureaucracy, and also what you mentioned earlier about the transfer of officials who have been appointed by the elected government, and then issuing the rules by which the governor appoints the IAS, IPS, the DANIX officials, but the chief secretary does. So that means the elected government has no role in any of the appointment running the government. So
Right.
he has just virtually stripped them of all the powers by these decisions one by one.
Okay. Shailaja, would you agree with that? That virtually the elected government now has no powers at all.
I would say that it is really not for us to question the law once it has been interpreted, unless it is set aside. Let me say that this being a union...
No, please compare the situation now, today, as when you were the chief secretary and when you were dealing in this kind of situation. Was that situation similar to what is happening now?
Not at all, not at all. For one thing, the officers were bound by various acts and rules, and the civil services conduct rules are among those. You also have due processes for financial and legal clearances for every decision that is taken in the government.
I have the business transaction of business rules, which clearly indicates what needs to be done.
Now, just let me, people may disagree, but as long as the Constitution says it is a union territory, the same electoral benefits cannot lie for the citizens of this place as for a state.
That's fine.
If that is the position, and the union territory is administered by a delegate of the president, which is really the government of India, in that case, it is for him to decide how to function. And if officers have not followed due processes, or the government has done anything which is maybe in the larger interest of the people in their opinion, but not following the systems that are laid down in black and white.
1 second.
This can
one
lead
second.
to...
Mike, I have a question. Now, the reason why this committee has been appointed, 400 files have been passed on to them, more may be passed on in the coming days, is that what the LG is saying when he appointed this committee is that there have been violations of the order, the transaction of business rules or whatever, and that's why he has been forced to appoint this committee to look into acts of omissions and commissions. Now the question is, if this has been going on for the last 1.5 years, according to what the LG is saying, why didn't he intervene earlier? If you are saying that it was within his powers to do it in the past, why didn't he intervene earlier?
I think I'm not his spokesman, but I can see that he made efforts not once, but at least 15-20 times. It never ended in any finality. Number two, you have to be clear that the majority with which the AAP government came it was really stupendous, to the point that anyone would be a little careful not to upset a government which comes with that mandate. That mandate has no value once they have been elected, whether it's 67 or 47 or 27. But it's the public perception is that they have the approval of the people of Delhi. He would have had to be circumspect at that time. But now with the High Court judgment, which is in black and white, and it has gone section by section, subclause by subclause, with great, I would say, care. And as long as it is not set aside, one has to accept it, and it is part of his responsibility as the administrator of Delhi to see that no wrongdoing has been done as per the legal position.
Shailaja, I asked you a question earlier saying that the situation as it exists today, is it the same as it existed when you were the chief secretary?
Not
and you
at
said
all.
no. How is it different now?
It is different because nobody had the courage to do anything beyond the due process. Now you have a situation where you put a square peg in a round hole, and then you expect that person to, how can you have a cadre post of a service? Why make a service? It is a service which is made under an act of parliament. The All India services are made there. The Civil Services Conduct Rules and the All India Service Act is there. There is a joint cadre authority. Can you possibly put a person who does not belong to the service to occupy a position because you have a mandate? No, because the person who comes does not
You are talking of both this PWD secretary and the health secretary who are transferred.
These are the two examples which come to fore. They may be the finest individuals. I know the health secretary personally. He's the outgoing one, a very, very, I would say, dedicated officer. But his background is not such that he can occupy a position which requires knowledge of constitution, law and economics, which is what is ingrained in you, and the due process is to be followed, and your job to point out the risks and benefits of any proposal. You're not trained to do that. You cannot just jump into a position. Exactly with the engineer-in-chief. If engineer-in-chief can become secretary PWD, why can't secretary PWD become engineer-in-chief? It's like saying the same thing. You cannot put a bureaucrat and tell him to do technocratic work. Similarly, you cannot put a technocrat and expect him to do administrative work.
Well, this has happened in the past. At least in some states, I have seen at least technocrats being held, holding positions of secretary. But that is not the issue here. Sanjay, as far as under what rules and regulations this committee has been appointed, and how can a committee like this be appointed? It has to be appointed under some provision.
Well,
or you think the LGA has powers to do that on this?
It has been done using his executive authority, and as Mr. Murthy rightly put it, it is reminiscent of the advisors to the governor who are appointed whenever there is president's rule in a state. That seems to be the same kind of formula that has been adopted here. But the real thing is that ultimately this has become what Mr. Jaitley called in a different context the tyranny of the unelected. You have a popular mandate which is being set at naught.
So would you agree that some people say that now the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi is a lame duck government?
The Aam Aadmi Party government has been rendered ineffective, or to use favorite bureaucracies of the Lieutenant Governor, null and void.
But what Shailaja Chandra says is that in the past, the same rules, the same act, the same thing, governments ran smoothly.
There's a fascinating book by a gentleman called Michael Foley. It's called The Silence of the Constitutions. Constitutions have spaces called abeyances, where you don't seek to define things to the last letter, the I, cross the T's and dot the I's. When you start demarcating authorities that I can do this, I can't do this, and you get into confrontational mode, the institutions suffer. Ms. Chandra worked at a kinder, gentler time when both authorities concerned, whether it was the Vajpayee government and the Sheila Dikshit government here, where they did ultimately understand.
I can speak for myself whether they were gentler times.
Yes, where they did understand that ultimately power, even through constitutional mechanisms, comes through the people, and you have to work it as a trust. Here there has been a breakdown of trust.
Exactly, that is the break. Mr. Achary, the breakdown of trust is something which is very, very visible. But as far as this order is concerned, after this order, does it mean that the LGA has no obligation anymore to consult the Chief Minister in any matter?
Well, it appears to be so, because he has taken these decisions without consulting the government in any case.
Yes.
Everybody knows that. But now,
No,
you see,
she's nodding her head. Why? You don't believe,
Because
you don't agree.
the question that you put was whether he is obliged to consult the government on
Is,
other
is
matters.
is there an obligation?
No, he has to consult, and the government will have to work as it was ordained to work. Within the framework of the Constitution, it is the Chief Minister and his ministers who have to take decisions. Where they have to be policy decisions, they'll go to the LG. If they are day-to-day decisions, they have to be obviously carried out. If the officers perceive that they are being overruled on matters, they'll have to bring it to the notice of the Lieutenant Governor. I don't see that their powers have been in any way taken away by this. They are going to do a post-mortem of previous orders passed, because obviously, I'm saying it not from knowledge, but from my perception of how things work. I'm sure something has come to light which they feel requires to be looked into in depth, for which they need a kind of a, you might say, foundation on which to create such cases.
In fact, the Lieutenant Governor has very clearly said that some of the orders which have been passed in the last one and a half years are illegal, unconstitutional, and therefore it has to be looked into.
see, the point is, the High Court has said that all the decisions of the government will have to be approved by the Lieutenant Governor. That thing. You know that Lieutenant Governor has certain discretionary areas. There, of course, he doesn't have to consult the Council of Ministries, but where he has to act on the advice of the Council of Ministries, even there also, the decisions of the government will have to be approved by the Lieutenant Governor. So, Lieutenant Governor is not obliged to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers, but he can defer.
So, one second. One of the ministers of the Aam Aadmi Party government has said that all these decisions which we have taken, we have sought post facto approval from the LG. That clearly is not going to be allowed anymore.
Well, you see the rule, if you look at the transaction of business rules, and the High Court has based its judgment basically on this, the transaction of business rules. Particularly, the High Court has quoted Rule 10, I think, where there is a mention about the government having to, put up the thing for his not approval. It doesn't speak about approval, but on issues where there may be a difference of opinion between the Lieutenant Governor and the Council of Ministries. So, in case there is a difference, then of course there is a procedure which has been laid down in the transaction.
It has to be taken to the center and
all that
kind
of thing. But this is the rule which has been invoked by the High Court in its judgment, and High Court has reached the conclusion that for everything, every decision has to be approved by the Lieutenant Governor. Although, according to me, as I look at it, neither the rules nor the NCT Act, nor the constitutional provision, that is 239AA, makes any clear provision that every decision has to be approved by the Lieutenant Governor. At least I have not come across any such provision in the law. So, the High Court has drawn an inference on the basis of this Rule 10, that every decision has to be put up to the Lieutenant Governor, and it can be implemented only if the Lieutenant Governor has no difference of opinion. That is the thing. In other words, Lieutenant Governor has the final say. So far as these matters are concerned.
Yes.
The rule is used to interpret the Constitution.
Yeah. So he has, High Court has interpreted it in this manner, as of course it has to be, it is going to be appealed against, and the Supreme Court will have the final decision on this. But till then, the position is that the Lieutenant Governor has been given all the powers, and his approval has to be taken on all the decisions which the Council of Ministries take. So that is the position.
Sanjay, as far as the political aspect of this is concerned, it's very interesting that Aam Aadmi Party, you find that they have no supporters left in the political firmament. Virtually every political party seems to be doesn't seem to back them on any of the issues which has been raised by them. So where does this leave the Aam Aadmi Party, and what kind of an impact will all this have politically?
Oh, politically, Girish, one is Aam Aadmi Party has also handled its case, its defense very shabbily, very unnecessary aggression, bad language and all that. So, that means they have not won over friends in various spectrum, not just in politics, but in civil society and among the legal profession and all that. So, their only hope is now to go to the Supreme Court, which would interpret, as Mr. Hegde said, not the rule, but the constitution, and then look at the larger scheme of things on how this whole scheme of a union territory with an elected government should work. Then the other thing for Aam Aadmi Party is also that its popular base, how much it is affected, because if they should have roused people for rallies, do things, and there should have been street protests and public this thing. We do not see anything of that, because there is also a feeling among the electorate that they have not been very efficient on the ground. They have frittered away that advantage to fight with the centre, to fight with the Lieutenant Governor, with all and sundry. Only in the political firmament, Mamata Banerjee used to support them, but she is busy with her own fights with the centre and all that. So, I think that is a problem, but then this has also negative political dividend for the BJP. It appears as if Narendra Modi has not forgiven Aam Aadmi Party for his first electoral defeat after becoming the Prime Minister. So, he is using Raj Bhavans across the country, but this is a very blatant misuse. And then coming to one last point, the Lieutenant Governor should not act as the President of the IAS Officers Association. If two non-IAS officers are made secretaries, he has to look at it. It is not the divine right of the IAS to become secretaries everywhere. So, I think he has been little to this thing about the IAS and non-IAS and all.
Shailaja Chandra will not agree. Shailaja Chandra will not agree with your contention, Sachi.
If all of you in the room want to go by a process which is legal, then the law does not permit it. There is an act.
No, but as I said, that I have seen. Sachi also. I remember that in other states, at least in Karnataka, we have seen a PWD engineer in chief becoming the secretary, which has been.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
I don't know whether it's a wrong or a right.
But ultimately, M. Vishweshwaraya would not be chief secretary.
No, but
anyway.
Shailaja, very quickly, last words. The whole effort behind appointing this committee and getting all these things done is as far as the LG is concerned, what he is saying is it is to improve the administration. Do you think it will improve the administration? Do you think the bureaucrats, the entire bureaucracy will be able to function in a normal manner after this committee is going to look into every action of theirs?
The committee will obviously, we are all trained to look at files. That's all that we are good at doing. So, it's really child's play for this committee to look at what's happened. It doesn't have any great rocket science behind the way government files are dealt with. But I would say that the officers, instead of doing their day-to-day business, look at the flooding of all the Delhi roads, look at all the traffic problems, look at the health problems, the chikungunya, the dengue. All this will take a back seat because there will be a tendency to look at 2 or 3 centers of power, which I thought was, it would have been nicer if I had been given I've been asked to give advice on this. My own personal point of view, I'm not talking about the luminaries which are going to assist the Lieutenant Governor. Maybe there are very serious things which I know nothing about. There may be very serious aspects. But I would have said a couple of OSDs sitting over there would have done this work, and then on 2 or 3 matters which are very serious, you could take an opinion of a lawyer, of a constitutional appointee.
Okay, I think on that note we'll end, but we'll wait and watch how this committee will be able to will do its work and what kind of suggestions and recommendations it will give and how it will be implemented. That also will be very interesting to watch. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.